Thank you. I'm Gene Sollock, and we're involved in the MIG grazing using the Paddock Systems. We have been involved in rotational grazing some 58 years, and we have been, over the last few years, honing our skills up on MIG grazing using the Paddock Systems. We retired in 1982 after teaching school some 32 years, with about 20 years of that in teaching vocational agriculture and about another 10 years in the administration. We, on our retirement in 1982, and Ruth retired in 1984, we moved back to our home area. And this is in 1982 that we came back to 91 acres of tilled, mined, eroded, depleted, goat grazed, brush growing, dust bowl. Welcome home, Gene and Ruth. This is not your first trip here. Next slide. This old place was capable of caring, not really taking care of them, but they existed on this 91 acres. We take care of about 18 small cows 6 months out of the year. It had 18 small calves, and the calves were marketed at a weight of about 300 pounds at 6 months old. So this averaged out to about 215 pounds per acre for 6 months and 150 pounds per acre for the other 6 months. Next slide. As we move into production, we started by clearing land, preparing the seed bed, liming and fertilizing. We were supporting the cattle. We were supporting the banker. We were supporting the feed companies, the implement company, the fertilizer people, the herbicide people, and the insecticide people, and many others that were on the side there. And after being involved there for a few years, I saw that it was going to be necessary, if you were able to exist, you were going to have to become less acquainted with those and move into a different type of production. Next slide. We saw that it was necessary to change direction. And we started doing that by ridding ourselves of rust, rot, and depreciation. It was necessary for us to join Mother Nature, and we did that first by planting clovers. Next slide. In changing our direction, we started fencing our 80 acres of usable acreage out here into 2 1/4 acre paddocks, with the rest and rotation on return grazing in about 20 to 22 days. Our fence consisted of one 12.5 gauge slick wire that is electrified with a fence charger. Next slide. Here you see that the paddocks are piped with water, and you observe here that they have just a tub there that they drink from, and it has the quick connect over there by the fence and the hose running over there to them. This can water 50 head of cattle just from that one tub, because they don't come up there all at one time when they're out in a 2 1/4 acre paddock. They come up and get their water and go on back and start grazing. The paddocks are piped with this water with 1-inch line that runs down by the side of the fence and tees in there with the hose, and it gives the cattle access to the water. Next slide. Here you see the water tub and the valve that's feeding that water into those paddocks. Next slide. We have a meter that goes to the pasture that meters the water, how much water is going to the cattle. It's a normal thing that cattle will drink about 1 gallon of water per 100 pounds of body weight. This way we have an accurate measurement of the amount of water that these cattle are consuming. And this will vary a great deal due to the weather. Hot weather, they will drink more than that gallon per 100 pounds of body weight. In cooler weather, they will drink less. In fact, They are very similar to our water consumption on our own bodies. Next slide. Here you see the layout of our paddock system, and that's the road that's going up in there. And you see that over on the west side or our left side, we look at the paddock system, it has the paddocks laid out, and they're almost, they're 2 1/4 acres in size and almost square. And each line there has 2 watering systems that takes care of the 8 paddocks down there. So each paddock has access to water. Next slide. On our stocking rate and the advantages, we graze 100 to 150 head of 500-pound stockers on a 2 1/4 acre site. They waste less forage, and they utilize that forage because they'll graze it down in a 24-hour period, and then they will move on through. You notice this slide was taken November 16th of 2006, and we had come out of a very severe drought all through the summer. And we had clover and ryegrass up at this time. Next slide. The stocking rate here is with a high concentration of manure and the hoof action. This is doing a great job. You see that the cattle are grazing here. Not an abundance of forage, but it's enough forage that they stay in good body condition here going through this time of the year. Next slide. Here we see the dung beetle working here on November 16th of 2006, and the activity of their working here. The dung beetles, earthworms, and the microbes are building the organic matter here by moving that manure down into the soil, and this helps to retain moisture. Also, it helps to give a little heat in cold weather and cool in the hot weather. Next slide. Understanding the balancing of different ingredients to blend with management keys. Here, we need to understand that soil and plants are not removed. They're only removed by the cattle grazing. Hay is harvested with livestock. That is the only way. We use no baling. Forage, graze, manure returned by beetles and earthworms. Burning residue is not acceptable. Next slide. Eliminate mowing by controlling weeds with stock density. Cattle will eat weeds, and many of the weeds are higher in protein than some of our forages. Graze standing dry forage with steady rotation. Green manure crop or dry forage is utilized by grazing with an assortment of livestock. Common Bermuda, coastal, Alicia, crabgrass, and weeds are our forages. Next slide. 20 years of answers from clover production. We have found that clover is a natural soil builder. It makes nitrogen available to the plants in the breaking down of the organic matter into the soil. The organic matter becomes available to the plants. Commercial fertilizer is not needed and has not been used now for 16 years. And hay and supplements are not used. Next slide.